hard. It's hard to identify this right away. I've read this book a few times this last year and slowly starting to see things in myself. Right, it might be confusing for you when you're just hearing this quickly to be able to identify it, but I encourage you to keep thinking about it. What did these two smarts bring about in your discussions about yourself or your students? Nothing, huh? Yes. Exactly. Mhm. Exactly, exactly. And they can all learn from the rap, even though it's a different way of making that instruction varied and doing these ways to reach a lot of different kids. We want our kids to identify how they're smart so they understand maybe there's a child who isn't word smart or logic smart as a leading strength, but they're very music smart and body smart, which we're going to get into next. And we need to be able to understand how to support and make that child feel okay. I think it's important that our kids learn to identify their strengths so they don't all think they have to be that top student and all think they're going to do the very same in every single way, that they understand their unique wiring. I spent a lot of time thinking about these with regard to my own development as a child because I grew up way out in the country, and we had lots of time to be out in nature and work, but we didn't get any lessons. There weren't any lessons we ever had. Our parents were really busy on the farm, and my dad was an attorney. And I realized that for me, I think when I think of interests, I think I was probably music and body smart, but didn't have a chance to develop a lot in those areas. Because I always think, what would I really want to do if I could? And I always go to sport things and music things. I did have piano lessons. I always go back to thinking I'm just going to go back to taking more piano lessons. But your kids' interests will identify their strengths. So you need to think about where their interests are, but also recognize that there's things that they're not going to want to do that you may really need them to do to develop those strengths that maybe are not their leading strengths. But I'm going to spend some time on this next one now. In terms of, oh, by the way, on music smart kids, I think learning to play an instrument or whatever is a great way for self-discipline because the reality of mistakes is always there and they're having to always face how to do things better. But movement and touch, man, we have a lot of these kids in our culture today, and I want to talk about body smart kids here. Body smart kids, I have the three of my grandsons, Isaac, Will, and Asa, that really all fit into this category. They think with movement and touch. They need lots of freedom and sometimes lots of space to move productively. Their hands are busy talking, their feet are busy tapping, being in motion. In particular, this would be true, I think, of Asa and Will. Being in motion is like breathing. They remember what they do, okay? We need to learn as educators and parents to see these as strengths and not deficits because it can be super distracting and irritating, okay? But these are the kids that are going to distance themselves from adults who are easily frustrated and constantly telling them to sit down, be still, keep their hands to themselves. They learn through touch. These are the kids. Asa, for example, is very, very body smart. And I'm reminded he needs something to hold. I used to think if he was holding a pencil or a thinking putty or something, he wasn't listening, that he had to keep his hands still, and I've learned he listens much better if he has something to manipulate. He needs to learn, some of my kids, that they can tap, but maybe quietly on their knee rather than like this, because they're constantly moving, and they're learning through touch. A child who's body smart is the child you want to pat on the back and tussle his hair and make eye contact and touch, because these physical contacts help the child remember what you have to say, okay? They're very body smart. I always feel badly about the kids who are body smart and get misdiagnosed. Dr. Kathy Cook, she leads Celebrate Kids. She's a really well-known author and speaker and has a background in education and child psychology, and she feels that many kids are suspected of having ADHD, but they're really just body smart instead, and that physical energy is the way they embrace life, and that what they need to learn is self-control regardless of their body smart out of respect for others, because they're tempted to use their body to hurt, to pinch, to kick, to bite. I mean, how many boys in particular does that come to mind in even some of my grandsons? But they need to be affirmed for who they are and then trained to use their bodies well and in kind ways. Having them maybe run an errand for you. Ace is a good one to clear the table after dinner, to get up, to move. Spiritually speaking, they're going to want to be able to picture themselves in Daniel's lion's den and what they would do in that case, or being a part of a service. They want to plan something with your family devotions. They want to be doing. But I would say that these are the kids that we really need to watch in a way to train them up so that they are respectful and self-controlled. I'm reading a new book right now that, well, I really want to encourage our faculty to read, but in it talks about that the number one, it's a lot of research on, it's called The Collapse of Parenting by Dr. Leonard Sachs. In it, he talks about that the number one trait for success in 11-year-olds, as measured when they're in their 30s, has nothing to do with grades and performance. It has everything to do with self-control, everything to do with learning. He talks about conscientiousness, honesty, self-control, perseverance. And so teaching these body-smart kids self-control is important, but also affirming that they learn through doing and through movement. And I think that's particularly important in our school. That's a very academically strong school and classical school, that we're aware of these kids in our classroom who need to learn by doing. And along with the body smart, this is what the book looks like, by the way. It's really easy read. It's not very big. Encourage you to read it. The second one I want to talk about is Nature Smart. And those are, again, many times your body smart kids are nature smart. This is Asa and Will, and oh my goodness, they spend their life on our property outside. They love to find frogs. And Asa, when we went to Disney World this summer to a world conference for our church, and everybody else was buying these little Disney things, he bought an alligator head. He's the one who's going to go outside and find bones in the dirt and bring them in and wonder what animals they belong to. And your nature smart kids, I think it's interesting, Asa, when he was adopted, we were at the zoo that day, kind of fitting, I think it's fitting for this nature smart, body smart kid. But it's hard for Asa to finish a meal before going outside. And if he's not outside for long, he gets really kind of edgy. They can get kind of negative. I feel like one of the things that we bought for Isaac, who's Troy's son, was a metal detector, because that outside exploring for Christmas and doing things outside in nature. Asa, and I see this in Isaac and Will too, they're going to go outside and they're going to see something in the dirt that I would miss. They're going to see that frog. They're going to see that lizard. They're going to see something that stands out. Nature smart kids think with patterns. They think and they see things that stand out, and they're very observant about outdoor patterns and aware of their surroundings. They pick up things that other kids don't. So they have this extreme ability to do that. And I love that about the nature smart kids, and I love the fact that we're on this property and we have a lot of ability to really send the kids outside. So spend a little time thinking, let's talk a little bit more about this. So that in terms of nature smart kids, they love to be outside talking. They recommend that those are the kids who sit by windows if you have windows. I know our grammar school classes don't, but sitting by a window, or in a restaurant, sitting by a window in the restaurants, and they like the idea of where storms are coming from and how mountains are formed, and they love to speak about God as a creator, natural disasters, creation stories, Noah, parting of the Red Sea, the analogies like the sheep and the shepherds and the parable of the weeds, these all communicate truth to those nature kids. They could easily confuse, however, the awe of nature for God. And these are the kids that really gain from having a pet to learn a responsibility with and whatnot. But that's nature smart and body smart. So let's spend a little time talking about those two and how it relates to your classroom and to you.